giving in. He touched her, but she didn't scream. His icy fingers took her breath away. She had felt this touch before. In fact, she couldn't remember a time when she'd been able to forget about his fingernails grappling at her flesh as she pulled the covers up around her face. She could feel his panting breath on her cheek as he moved closer. He had watched her in the hallway, his gaze inhibiting every waking moment and his touch tearing her away from sleep. She often caught a glimpse of him in a doorway, just before she closed her eyes at night, but the image was fleeting. At first, she thought she was going crazy. She had blamed the flushes on hormones and went to the doctors on several occasions, but now she longed for madness, anything to shield herself from the truth. She didn't fight it anymore. That fight had ended long ago. She had resigned herself to walks along North Pier and begging friends to stay the night but refusing to tell them why. Now she let fear wash over her. She'd become accustomed to cold sweats and sickness. The tightness that she felt in her chest was no longer a concern, just a daily occurrence. In a moment of despair, she had confided in her mother. Her mother wasn't a believer and had scoffed at the notion of a haunted house. She had placed her hand over her mouth as she laughed to stop her teeth escaping, so she didn't mention it again. These occurrences had always been confined to the house. She thought about moving away, but her distaste for the home was reflected in the house itself, and she would never have attracted a buyer. With little money, she struggled to see how things could improve. This is where she had raised 2 children and made her marital bed. But after the children had left, her husband had too, and that's when the haunting began. It was as if the emptiness had beckoned the spirits in. Something she fascinated about, taking a box of matches and burning the whole place down. She imagined standing across the road as firemen fought the flames, then apologising when they failed to extinguish the blaze. She imagined tears rolling down her cheek in front of the scorched ground. She imagined the puzzled faces of onlookers as they saw her smile. Led in bed, she felt him again, his body heavy like a real man. Over the years, she was sure that his presence had become more forceful and unrelenting. That night, after the first of his appearances, she took a shower. Her red skin blistered under the heat, and she wondered how something that left no mark could leave her feeling so dirty that nothing would take it away. She got out of the shower and got dressed, put on walking boots and a coat. It was late and out of season, and the prom would be deserted. She liked it like that. She left the house shaking as she often did. Tears started to fall, she was so tired. People had started to notice. She had lost weight, her hair was thinning, her eyes were dull, and she often found herself with nothing to say but a head full of things she wished she could forget. She found herself sat on the beach underneath the pier on the bottom step, with her knees bent up against her chest. She was lapsing in and out of consciousness. Dreams of floating away, calm and serene, broken by the sharp wind that stung her skin, and she felt him. She wasn't sure at first, but the breath on her neck as she leant over her shoulder made her retch. His hands pulled her backwards. They ran over her chest, and she could not let it happen here, not in public. This was her safe place, and she could feel it slipping away. She stood up, and her coat fell off her shoulders and onto the floor. She could feel him pulling her backwards. She walked. His grasp was strong, but for once, she was stronger. She continued walking, straight ahead into the sea. It was cold, but she didn't mind. She could feel his grip loosening as she waded into the water.